Satya Raghavan, Siddharth Bhardwaj, Abhishek Joshi, Shonil Charles, and Tarun Katyal.
Thank you so much. Sonali, with that, take it away.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the entertainment panel, so hopefully the gentlemen here will be entertaining as promised to me behind the scenes just a moment ago. So it's been a long day, but hopefully this is going to rejuvenate you. And with that, let me kickstart the topic for today, which is really, content at your fingertips, the whole revolution that entertainment has seen with digital entertainment now, the thing. How many in this audience are subscribers to any of the OTT platforms, whether it be Netflix, Amazon, Voot, MX Player? Is that it? Z5? Anything that I've missed? Can I have a show of hands? Okay, that's better. Okay, great. So you will be in agreement that, this is the future, but let's see if it's really the future and how it's shaping up with the gentleman here. Just to give you a brief introduction of my panel, cumulatively speaking, the cumulative experience of this panel is close to, I don't know, a century, really. And they've all been doyens of entertainment in the traditional form, and now some of them have moved to the new age digital form of entertainment, so hoping to get a lot of insight. So let me start with you, Tarun. Now you're heading Z5. We all know that you've had an illustrious journey with entertainment in your previous avatars. What is the most stunning revelation, according to you, in terms of digital entertainment from a consumer standpoint and the way they are viewing this? Good, bad, or ugly?
So it's interesting, right? What does digital do for entertainment, or what it does for content and content creators? I think the most stunning discovery, or the most stunning information that is actually kind of used as an everyday parlance is the level of personalization and segmentation that technology can do for you. What we've really seen is truly coming alive of the segment of one. And all the artificial intelligence, algorithms, machine learning put into work can give you such magic that, to give you an understanding, that there is nothing called a homepage anymore, right? We all believe that there was a homepage, right? When the traditional form of websites and all of that came about, the product owner, the publisher, would have a homepage where they would put out stuff and would believe that this is what people must consume. If you go to YouTube today, and Satya will tell you more about that at some point in time, we almost sit on a panel every week, I think. But, or if you go on to our app at Z5, most of what you see on the homepage is not the publisher's homepage, but it is the consumer's, the user's homepage. And that's the level of personalization that you end up seeing through technology. Everything that you like, you consume, and you would want to consume going forward is what makes your homepage now. And it's simple, but it's really complex at that, yeah.
Of course. And Satya, now to you as somebody who runs content for YouTube, and the fact that you've also had a lot of experience in the broadcast world. So you've seen push, and now you're doing pull. What is the most stunning revelation for you?
No, when I look at this from a bird's eye view, fundamentally nothing has changed, but everything has, right? If you looked at how it was in the traditional land of, let's say, television, there was still someone who created that content. There was still someone who then curated that content. There was still someone who put some technology to deliver that content. And then there was the consumer who consumed it, right? Fundamentally, that hasn't changed. But what has changed are, one, the speed at which content gets created, right? Television ostensibly creates maybe 2 to 3 hours of content per day, a channel or something like that, right? But if you then look at the collective digital content which is out there, that number is just exponential compared to what content gets created on television. And I call that just the speed of content creation, right? You are a content creator. I am a content creator. We are all content creators in our daily lives in that sense, and we find platforms to then put it out there, right? Social media being a great example. So I think the speed of content has changed, right? Fundamentally, when I look at your title, which is content at your fingertips, it's somewhat of a misnomer now, right? That's one other change, because earlier content was at your fingertips because that was the only way you would interact with content. But now, as Tarun pointed out, right, the algorithm behind it, which is giving you the best possible content you want, customizing it for you. So it's content at, if you can call it that, content at your algorithm, right? There is content on demand, right? You can actually speak to something and get your content at this point of time, right? And you no longer need to type anything or press a button. So which is, content at your beck and call, perhaps, right? So nothing has changed, but everything has, right? That's one way to look at everything. And for a content creator who's out there, if you can then make sense of how to adapt yourself and then think about how things could further adapt, that's when I think you'll find a lot of success in the way things are at this point of time, right?
Yeah. Rupak, let me come to you. And so, taking off from what Tarun and Satya said, if you can bring to the fore how the consumer has changed in terms of how they view content because of the offering change. If there has been a change at all, or is it fundamentally still the same?
Well, I think the change is taking place, and the fundamental shift that will take place, and it's a bit controversial to say because there are a lot of people over here who perhaps depend on it. And I know not everyone, most people here are probably not from media, and even though you are consumers of content online, some certain terminology may not be something that you're familiar with. So there's AVOD, which is advertising video on demand, and there's SVOD, which is subscription video on demand. So obviously, if you pay for it, it's SVOD. And if your advertiser is paying for the content that you watch, it's AVOD. My sense is that today people are still very tolerant of advertising and are willing to watch content because the advertiser is funding them. As these platforms start to proliferate and as there's more and more content available, it seems that that exchange is going to fall apart. There has to be fundamental value exchange between the audience and the content, whether it's in the form of entertainment, information, utility, education, whatever it might be, or cold hard cash even in some cases. The advertiser will not be able to just show ads in this world any longer. So what that then leads to is a situation where you have brands actually integrating content and creating more and more branded content. So I think that's going to be a fundamental shift that we're seeing.
Well, that's an interesting point, Rupak, but for that, consumers have to also start spending then if they want uninterrupted viewing.
They
right?
do, and we will.
So
yeah.
let me throw that question to Shonil. Do you think that consumers, more and more consumers, and let's not just look at the elite or SEC A++, audience profile. Do you think, are we seeing an actual increase in consumption, paid consumption? Because my content is important to me.
So in my opinion, and a lot of the folks on the stage run businesses where we're starting to see the early stages of this, which is actually a very good sign because subscription money is the holy grail which all of us are chasing. That's when the business model will actually make complete sense. For us, as we run a news website, we see this a little longer way in the future. It might happen for entertainment and music and things like that where it's taking off. But I think for news, it'll be a little more complicated. I run the Times Network's news website called timesnownews.com. I just want to call out that we've seen a very interesting year. Like Deep mentioned in the last panel, we had a massive late mover advantage. So we've grown very quickly, but it's purely, presently the model is on advertising, and in the near future also I see it as an advertising-driven model. Primarily in text, maybe video will happen sooner.
So essentially you're saying you don't think consumers will be paying anytime soon?
I don't think they'll pay for text.
So again, fundamental lens through which this should be viewed. Again, I don't think anything much has changed because consumers have always been paying for content. Sure. Right? I mean, we've always been paying a cable wala who came to our house. And in fact, that is, it's not something that one needs to change behavior of. Consumers have always been paying in India. So in a lot of ways, I don't think it's early days as such. It's just that it's perhaps a change in the way we pay, right? I mean, fundamentally, what there were like 300 channels we paid for, and now we're all thinking how to pay for about 30 to 40 such apps or platforms and things like that, right? So what has changed is what has actually happened in the television world, right? With certain changes that have happened in the ecosystem at this point of time, where it's moved from perhaps a B2B to C to a B2C scenario at this point of time. So actually the
I think
change
he's
is
referring
more,
to the triorder where consumers today are empowered to choose and pay for the channel that they want to view, and it's no more your cable wala or your DTH operator forcing the bundle upon you. That's what you're referring
Now's
to.
the time when we
people
get
are
him
not
in.
just paying for content. They're also paying for convenience, right? So when you pay for Z5 or Netflix or something like that, you're paying for convenience to watch it at your time when you want to watch it. To be able to download it, to be able to do it on the go, to be able to watch various formats. So it's different, right? To watch it on a smart TV versus a mobile phone. You're not paying just for content itself. You're paying for convenience, you're paying for technology. Globally, when Netflix started in the US, they were only charging for convenience because all the content, they didn't have any originals, mind you. All the content was network content, but the networks only delivered it in a linear format. What they did was they bought network content for cheap and just made it an on-demand service, which consumers started paying $9 or $8 for just being on demand. Sure. So technology actually helps you do much more and helps you discover content, and you pay for all of that rather than just paying for content.
Do you see them actually paying?
We see them paying in hordes, okay? So we're possibly the largest producers of original content in the country. And when we took this path about 6 months ago, I still remember talking, being on a panel with Satya, and we were having this discussion about language and vernacular and so on and so forth. And we committed ourselves to creating 90 series. And everybody thought we were a little off the rocks, right? But not only do they pay in tier 1 cities, but they pay in tier 2 cities. And we created packages around languages like Tamil, Telugu, Kannada. And we saw a huge offtake of all of that, even in smaller cities.
How encouraging.
Yeah, very encouraging. People are willing to pay for quality content, but also for convenience. Yeah.
Is there a contra view on the panel?
See, when you think free, like what Shonil said, please don't forget that they pay for the data. Yeah, like a basic cable charges that you pay, you also pay for the data. It's not that it's totally free. So yes, the relative numbers may be different, but you do pay for the data.
It's just that Mr. Ambani's made it really free. But the other point I would, interesting point what Rupa was saying was it's ad funded. It's not ad funded, it's ad supported. Currently, we are in the ad supported scenario. We will move to the ad funded scenario, but most of it, consumers, there are a lot of people write on the app or on the Play Store saying there are too many ads and so on and so forth. So we told our team one fine day, and you said, please write back and say, you want the ad-free environment? This is a subscription package, go and pay for it. Otherwise, this service is an ad-supported service to make it free for you. Sure.
Spot on. I think what will die is advertising that does not add value to the audience's life in any form.
Okay, let me get the MX player view. So Abhishek, you've heard the panel so far, and you're a completely free platform, right? So you are, so when Tarun here says that people are willing to pay for content, and and he's very optimistic about it. Do you have why are you free then?
See, even I am optimistic about people paying. I hope they pay sooner than later. The only reason why we are free is what we have realized is the affinity to pay is there, but the ability to pay is still not there. Because the pipes to pay and the credit cards and the wallets and all of that are still not deeply penetrated into this ecosystem. So even if I want to pay, how do I pay? I mean, that is what we were speaking when Make My Trip came into India for the first time, or when it was founded. Yeah. That was a bold step. But how many of them actually paid for flight tickets or train tickets online? That's number one. Number two, why we are free is for the simple fact that we are a brand new platform. I mean, and it makes complete sense for us to go the AVOD way.
Yeah, there's a journey to be taken. We were free for the first 6 months, and over a period of time, people realize where the trend is going, and if there is enough traction, they can up the level of content creation. Sure. and then go pay. But yes, there's a journey, and it makes complete sense for them for where they are.
See, to be honest, if
Go ahead.
see, around the world, if you really see, there are only few really pay platforms. There are not too many Netflixes, there are not too many Amazon Primes, right? Even in India, I think it's very early days, like the traditional gold rush, I think there is a lot of people who are there, out of which how many will actually invest rightly, like what Tarun is saying, and finally remain a real pure play pay or a freemium kind of a model. It remains to be seen. At the same time, if you go by the history of the television for that matter, where there are free platforms and people love things free. India is a country where there's a duplicity in everything, right? In the same road, a Rolls Royce and a Maruti Alto also rides, right? So there'll be a large free market in India in any ways. There'll be a amount of market which will be willing to pay. For example, even till today, roughly what, 70, 80 million people watch HD television, which is like you have paid for it. So if that's to be a proxy of what you can expect of people who could finally end up paying for paid content, even if that happens soon, it will be big.
You know, Partha, there's a so Siddharth's here and he runs this whole cinema chain. Their whole model is paid. He can tell you how many people pay. We tend to take proxy as HD and stuff like that. But, you know, cinema is a great proxy of how many people really pay out for entertainment on an ongoing basis.
How many?
I think before coming to that question, I think paying for content is a function of, we believe, of two things. One is reach and another one is how compulsive the content is. Because we come from a medium which has been paid forever, paid medium forever, and the number of people that actually watch HD is similar to the number of people that actually consume cinema in the country. And they're all paying for it. However, if we just go back 10 years, when cinema reach was limited, when it was not digitized, and we are here to discuss digitization, the number was dropping rapidly, right? And I think because of digitization, cinema got democratized. The same content was available to every screen audience in the country, whether it is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So there's this consumer in every town class which actually is willing to pay for content. If one, Tarun spoke about convenience, I think I will up it a bit, experience. I think if the experience is good and if the content is compulsive, and I think these two things, if we can get it right, and which will happen over a period of time, right? We have seen a huge change because of the digital, platforms, OTT platforms. The content pipeline is becoming richer on both the platforms, whether it is cinema or on OTT, because there is talent crossover that happens from one platform to another. So everything is becoming richer.
That's true, yeah. Something is very big in cinema, you know that it's also going to be very big in OTT. We just launched the trailer of Uri. Uri is coming onto our platform. And the platform's already shaking. I'm worried because just after Uri, the next day we launched Simba. Yeah. And the two of them together, we are not as good as Google. We've already warned our back-end servers that we're going to see a surge that we may not be able to handle there.
And we will need to keep on innovating to make the consumers pay. I mean, earlier when the SVOD came into India, it was one size fits all. You pay $100, you could watch whatever. But then you will have to customize it for what your audience wants, what your consumer wants. Either it could be a sports pack, language pack, whatever. But you will need to know what exactly he is waiting for and what he is willing to pay for.
Okay, let me throw a question to Siddharth, which is, how do you think, like you said, the content's getting richer? We can't debate that, it has, undoubtedly. But do you think, with the content evolution that one sees because of the burst of platforms, is the monies that is being invested, right, is it justified in terms of returns? And if it's not, what is the waiting or gestation period? How many years?
I think platforms which take responsibility of the money that is being invested on them will always get more investments. So digital, which has been built on ROI that it delivers, and if I'm not wrong, you're talking about advertising investments.
I'm talking about money being plowed in by all these platforms,
Yeah,
right?
so, okay. Answering that question, I'll again go back 10 years. India made 800 movies 10 years back. Today it is making 1800. The bigger movies are becoming even bigger. The cash flows are becoming far better. If you see Yashraj or any big content owner, they used to make 4 movies, 5 movies in a year. Today they're making 20, 25. Their cash flows are becoming better because of digitization. Even languages beyond the 4 or 5 big languages in the country, rich content is being created in those languages. So because of resources getting democratized, there's an audience for good content, which is massy, and there is audience for even niche content if it is compulsive enough. So ROIs both ways get justified. If you are looking at niche, again, because the reach is fairly large, you are able to monetize it faster, better. And if you're investing huge on big movies, which are massy movies or massy content, because of the sheer reach and where the content is not only monetized on one platform but multiple platforms, one is able to garner better throughput from the same investment.
I think that, the way you frame the question in terms of a time horizon, that's the right way to look at it, because the numbers are absolutely mind-boggling if you look at it. Netflix, what is it, 10 billion this year?
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason they're doing it is obviously not just to get return on investment directly from the content. It's also, if you go back to what Tarun was saying earlier in terms of the personalization, the AI behind it, it's also about providing enough data points to be able to glean that intelligence and predictive analytics for the future to really know what works. My brother is an AI scientist at Netflix in LA. Okay, so he and his team are actually building, and this is not a secret, it's quite open, they're building AI to be able to scour the world for sources of potential hit content, whether it's plays, newspaper articles, real life happenings, etc., etc. So the more data you have, which you can only get by spending 10 billion, 15 billion, 20 billion, who knows? So that's actually, there's a lot of it that comes from that, which is the data.
Okay, let me talk about advertiser interest, and Partho, maybe you can take this. Of course, I also am leaving all the measurement questions for later for you, but before that, so, you were saying it's about 2,000 crores right now, the current...
The total OTT...
total OTT,
yeah,
right? Out of which 1,700 crores would come from...
advertising.
AVOD, right? And the rest between the few players that remain. Do you see substantial interest and escalation of this figure, let's say in the next 5 years, or do you see that the group that it's going to remain a very small pie in terms of advertiser interest?
See, you're saying the interplay between advertising and subscription?
Yeah.
Or
No.
Advertising
interest pure play. Yeah.
See, I think it'll grow substantially in the next couple of years. See, this 1,700 doesn't include YouTube, for that matter, okay, which is another 2,000, 2,500 crores very clearly. So yeah, which is, I mean, you're as big as any other broadcaster, so to speak. But I'm saying, yeah, this will grow in the next few years. I mean, I think we are starting at a very low base now. I see no reason why.
Sorry, sir. No. So, video is really the form of digital advertising that is going to grow, and the sharper segmentation that digital advertising can provide, the higher CPMs the advertisers will be willing to pay.
I'm glad you brought that point. I was waiting for somebody to bring that point, because now I'm going to ask, who's monitoring?
Who's monitoring?
Yeah. Who's monitoring?
We have Moat and DAR embedded on it, both Nielsen as well as Oracle. So we are very transparent, and most good platforms have both Moat and DAR embedded. These are all third-party tools, and everybody uses these third-party tools, whether it's Unilever, whether it's P&G. Very transparent, very attribution-led. There may not be a single currency that every OTT platform has, but majority of them globally use Moat and DAR for them. Google still doesn't use them, but I think that at some point in time they will.
Yeah, I mean, without going into specifics, I actually wanted to answer...
We took this step, and I'll tell you, we took this step. It was a very bold step. that we wanted to integrate these into our platform, but there was a growing need from advertisers to have transparency, attribution, ROI, and then we got both moat and DAR
I think
embedded
Tarun,
into it.
Sonali's question in this is not about not getting measured. It's about one standard measurement.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it one standard or is any measurement?
It is both.
Yeah.
Both.
Standard measurement, Partho will do his job at some point in time.
So two things. I'll talk about measurement and I'll talk about advertising also, right? So as far as advertising goes, I think the fascinating part about why the future of advertising looks really good is not just because there'll be movement from one part of the pie to another, but it's just that the size of the entire pie is also going to grow, right? And the example that I give everyone is mattress companies, right? Mattress companies didn't exist in India till about 3 years ago, perhaps, right? But suddenly, everybody who can afford a mattress will now go in for a mattress. Earlier, it was a cottage industry. You would buy a mattress from like a local manufacturer, but now you actually have large consumer companies, who are new categories, new subcategories are emerging, right? And a lot of those want to actually target consumers, right? So which is why a lot of them actually then like what they see on the digital side of things, because they are able to then target them well. Okay. Television is still built on maybe 30,000 data points, but digital is built on every single data point being measured, either through a common system or through a very robust system, right? So I think that is the way to look at it, rather than try to figure out whether there should be one standard. I think it's the fact that, how many data points does an advertiser have to be able to take the right decision?
Yeah, but how many data points do advertisers
at
trust?
a very different level, India is a very under-advertised country, principally. Okay, so there's a metric which says ad to GDP ratio, which is global average is about 0.7. India is about, I think, 0.38 or 0.32, one of these two numbers. So there's a long way to go in terms of the advertising number itself. The total $1 billion advertising in India itself is very, very low. So be it digital, be it television, be it anything. Even India is one of the only countries in the world where print is growing.
Yeah. And that too regional print. Right?
Let me make a point here, Sonali. I think we're jumping the gun on measurement for digital. There's a fair amount of measurement already, whether there are external tools or internal tools. You go back outside of television, whether it's print, and it's an IRS system that most publishers themselves are in court with all the time. Whether it's radio, they haven't been able to go beyond the 4 cities. Whether it's cinema, whether it's out of home. Most other ADEX properties really don't have any form of measurement. It's only television, and after that digital, and digital with many more events, many more data points, and many more third parties. So I think this medium is just growing. It has a journey to take. There are some mediums which are legacy media, but they still don't have any form of regular measurement. So I think we're not even letting the baby walk here.
I think we are over-measured, actually.
I agree. And that's where the pricing really gets screwed up.
But I think it's good. You're over-measured, you're under-penetrated, so the future is bright.
Correct.
Right? That's the way to look at it.
Something will fix itself.
Yeah.
And also from a marketing standpoint, just because we are able to give so many data points and so many intrusions into the entire campaign phase to the advertiser, they have always looked at us for performance. No one has ever built a brand on digital.
Yeah, और ये सब कोई सवाल print को क्यों नहीं पूछता?
Correct.
Measurement है print में.
एक साल में एक बार. उसको measurement बोलते हैं, वो भी masthead के ऊपर.
So let me ask you, Rupak, as you are now also content to OTT players. What is the kind of and also Tarun, you can weigh in on this. From the days of how content was, let's say, sourced from production houses and content suppliers in the good old days of just TV, as opposed to the new days of TV plus digital. What has changed in the way digital networks are asking for content? What's the brief you get?
I think they're really targeting lots of sub-audiences. That's the big difference. That's the fundamental difference. If you look at it, and I'm talking about not just from information coming from this side, but even if you look at when we're talking to English channels, for example, the same channels that we were talking to 2 years ago about, say, branded content, AFPs, etc., or any kinds of conversations we were having, the demeanor, the attitude, the willingness to have a conversation today is about 10x what it was 2 years ago, because nobody's watching that stuff anymore, right? So that's one side of it. The other side of it is, as I was saying, they're able to, you've got a Made in Heaven, you've got a, what was that, Mirzapur, you've got stuff on Balaji, you've got stuff on Z5. I mean, if you look at the plethora, the entire range of content, you can't really say that there's really a pattern. There's all kinds of content. So that's the big thing about this medium.
I think you must give it to digital. And Sonali, you and me have now matured over the years of watching this, right, for 20 years about.
Not as much as come on.
But the fact is that you have to give it to digital to have reinvented content in this country. Whether you look at, some of the content that Netflix has made, whether some of the content Amazon has made, and some of the stuff we've made. The cinematic appeal, the bringing of really good, unique storytelling, and also really good acting talent onto the platform has happened because of digital. We launched a show which was spirituality meets thriller with Arjun Rampal recently called The Final Call. And the amazing amount of reviews we ended up getting for it. And we didn't think that a genre like that existed, right? Thriller means put the gun on the pocket and then, pull it out, start shooting, right? This was about somebody being mentally disturbed, taking the plane down, so on and so forth. It was an evolved story. We picked up a book and so much of written word that is getting converted into great stories with cinematic appeal. All of that never happened in India for so many years. And I think you have to give it to these platforms to have reinvented content creation in this country. Yeah.
Actually, both for consumers and for producers of content. I think it's a great opportunity, very honestly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just building on that point.
Both of them.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
my point is, see, as a consumer, and if I talk purely as a consumer, it's great news for me.
Sure.
Right? I have a myriad of content today that is actually targeting me as the consumer, as opposed to, let's say, a few years ago, where the only offering broadly stood in the SaaS and Bahu category. So today I'm much more empowered as a consumer. My question to the panel is, does that make you empowered as businesses? Because while I'm happy, will you guys be happy? Because you're the ones who are putting in the money. Does the return, when are the returns going to come for you?
Okay, so I'll take this first.
Yeah.
And I want to bust this myth about return on investment on content, right? And I say this at every forum. Please understand that this is a digital platform. This is not TV. It's not when you put out the content on a television network for that night and it's over forever. This is lifetime value. When you come in to watch the 4th or the 5th or the 6th season of House of Cards, you may be a first-time consumer of Netflix and you'll start consuming that from season 1.
Sure.
And every new consumer that Netflix or Amazon or Z5 or MX Player acquires goes back watching this content from where it started. The convenience of having the content available and the convenience of having content on demand is just that. It's lifetime value. Yeah. And this lifetime value can last. I started watching Grey's Anatomy just last year. It is now 14 years old. Yeah. I'm watching content that is 14 years old. And it still has value for me. It came onto Amazon Prime only now. So imagine the value of content. You're talking about years and years of mining this good content.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. There's this iconic movie called Andaz Apna Apna, which obviously had its run in the theaters, then it has had its run on satellite. Uncannily, that movie came onto YouTube about a month ago, right? So you can now watch Andaz Apna Apna on YouTube, and in a matter of like 6 weeks, there were like 4 million people who ended up watching that, right? So what digital truly does, it is that it allows every piece of content to maximize its existence and reach, right? That's what it truly does, and it's kind of liberating for a content creator, because then you are not dependent on either a gatekeeper or a window keeper. You know what I mean? So it just truly allows content to find its end consumer and then some more.
Okay, everybody's answering this so poetically, but I'm trying to get,
I have a slightly different view. I mean, perspective rather. I think good content will always find its consumer thanks to the facilitation of technology, okay, which is coming back to your first question, which is personalization and also convenience. Sure. You can watch it the way you want, and your kind of stuff will be thrown at you. But the issue is, how far will it be funded?
Exactly.
The capital markets have kind of backed Netflix and Amazon in a way which has never been done before. Will they really back many more such players? Time will only tell. Or will it be another gold rush where there will be a lot of shakeout in some time? Time will only tell whether how it will pan out.
So, I just have one point,
Sure.
unlike a lot of people on this panel. In the news business, this is a big challenge for us because our content is not time independent.
That is true.
What was valid yesterday is not. So it's a continuous factory machinery model which is continuously churning news. The only thing which we see as an opportunity is, micro documentaries and short format content which is now living online for a longer period of time. But it's a little bit more challenging for news. And presently, online consumption of news is massive. But we just have to keep feeding that beast on a day-to-day basis.
But doesn't news have better unit economics? Now, wearing a venture capitalist hat, because every extra piece of news that you produce, technically the cost of producing it is not incremental, it's marginal, right? In that sense.
And we do have the machinery. We're a television broadcasting network already producing three news channels 24 hours a day. So we have a lot of supply coming in, but yeah, it's not time independent, and that's causing challenges for us to keep it online for a while.
It's marginal costing for repurposing, actually.
Well, on that note, I think it's time up. I have 30 seconds to wrap. But the good news is clearly that we as consumers, you, the audience and me, we have lots to watch, lots more coming. People on this panel are will continue to plow money in and give us fabulous content. How they make their money is really their problem. On that note, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonali, and a huge thanks to all of the panelists. And this has made for a great segue to our next session. Because be it political disagreements or partisan debates, opinions expressed online create a digital footprint. A footprint that serves as a strong indication of public perception.
That's true. I mean, Pooja, you can look at any of the social media platforms. There are so much conversations going on. But how has the language of politics changed in the digital context? So to take on this topic, we're joined by a panel of political heavy hitters next. And to moderate the conversation, I'd like to welcome on stage Padmaja Joshi, primetime anchor with